What you ignore, you weaken. What you engage, you strengthen. This is a principle that governs every area of life, from relationships to personal growth. The illusion of avoidance is that by stepping away, by disconnecting, by pretending something does not exist, it will eventually lose its power. But the truth is, whatever you choose to ignore only festers in silence, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Absence does not dissolve pain, it amplifies it. Distance does not heal wounds, it isolates them where they can grow unchecked. When someone walks away believing that their silence will protect them, they unknowingly give more power to the very thing they are trying to escape. Imagine a fire left unattended. The assumption is that if you don't feed it, it will eventually burn out. But some fires do not die with neglect. They smolder beneath the surface, spreading where they cannot be seen. And then, when the right conditions come, they erupt with even greater force. This is how the heart works. This is how emotions function. No contact does not erase the bond that was formed. It does not undo the attachment, the fears, or the unspoken words. It simply removes the distractions that kept the truth at bay. The pain of absence is not in the loss itself, but in the confrontation with self, when there is no longer a person to respond to, no longer a conversation to avoid, no longer a relationship to navigate. What remains is the weight of one's own unresolved emotions. The external battle turns inward. And for those who have spent their lives avoiding deep emotional connection, this silence becomes deafening. Avoidance is not freedom, it is a prison disguised as a refuge. The mind convinces itself that by stepping away from discomfort, it has won. That by choosing detachment, it has gained control. But true freedom is not in running, it is in facing. The moment you avoid something, you have already surrendered to it. Because avoidance is an admission of powerlessness, a silent confession that whatever is being avoided holds too much weight to be confronted. People believe that if they do not acknowledge something, it will not affect them. But ignorance is not immunity. Ignoring fear does not make one fearless. Ignoring pain does not create healing. Ignoring love does not make the heart stop yearning for connection. No contact does not resolve the issue, it only prolongs the inevitable reckoning. There is a misconception that distance creates healing, but distance without confrontation only breeds illusion. The avoidant believes they are escaping when in reality they are simply delaying. They believe they are in control when in truth they are being controlled by the very thing they refuse to face. Avoidance does not remove the weight of emotions, it simply stores them away, waiting for the moment they will demand to be dealt with. Silence is never truly empty. It carries echoes, memories, and the weight of everything left unsaid. When no contact is enforced, it may seem like peace at first, but over time, the silence becomes an amplifier. It takes every unspoken word, every unresolved emotion, and magnifies them in ways that presence never could. The mind does not simply forget. It replays, it rewrites, it reimagines. In the absence of new information, the past becomes louder. The very thing an avoidant seeks to escape begins to haunt them, not because the other person is reaching out, but because their own thoughts refuse to let go. People assume that silence means nothing is happening, but silence is often the loudest response. It strips away the distractions, forcing a person to sit with what they have been running from. The avoidant personality thrives on distance, on space, on the ability to regulate emotions through separation. But no contact turns that very tool into a mirror. Instead of allowing them to detach, it forces them into confrontation. Not with another person, but with themselves. And the deeper the avoidance, the louder the silence becomes. No contact does not create closure. It creates a void. And the human heart is not designed to exist in voids. It fills them, often with thoughts and emotions that are more intense than what reality would have offered. The absence of conversation turns into imagined conversations. The absence of presence turns into a heightened awareness of what is missing. Avoidants do not escape emotion. They drown in the very thing they try to suppress. The fear of connection does not remove connection. It magnifies it in the subconscious, making it even harder to ignore. Running from relationships does not sever them. It enslaves a person to them. Avoidants believe that detachment gives them freedom. But true freedom does not come from running. It comes from facing. A person cannot be free from something they refuse to deal with. Avoidance is not a clean break. It is an invisible chain. The more someone tries to suppress emotion, the stronger its grip becomes. The more someone avoids confrontation, the more power they give to what they fear. What many fail to realize is that fear of connection is still a form of connection. Avoidants do not disconnect because they feel nothing. They disconnect because they feel too much. The act of avoiding is in itself a response, an acknowledgement that something holds weight in their life. If there were no attachment, there would be no need to run. If there were no emotional significance, there would be no fear of facing it. Detachment is not the absence of emotion, it is the refusal to process it. No contact does not sever the bond, it highlights it. It brings attention to the depth of emotion that has been denied. The more one tries to disengage, the more they reveal how deeply they are affected. Avoidance is not the end of connection. It is the evidence of how much it truly matters. Avoidance withdraw to gain control, yet no contact exposes how little control they truly have. The belief that distance provides power is an illusion, a carefully constructed defense mechanism designed to protect oneself from vulnerability. But what happens when the silence doesn't bring relief? What happens when instead of feeling in control, an avoidant realizes they are now at the mercy of their own thoughts? The very thing they tried to escape now takes root within them, growing stronger in the quiet. Control is often mistaken for avoidance. A person may think that by removing themselves from a situation, they are dictating the terms of their emotional experience. But emotions do not work that way. They do not simply obey the rules of detachment. They linger, they evolve, they find new ways to surface. No contact does not erase emotions. It intensifies them by stripping away external distractions. What remains is an internal battle that no amount of running can resolve. The mind seeks closure, but avoidance denies it. By stepping away, an avoidant believes they are putting an end to something, but in reality, they are only pausing it. The unresolved emotions, the lingering thoughts, the unspoken words, all of these continue beneath the surface, waiting for an outlet. And because no contact removes the ability to seek reassurance or validation, the avoidant is left with nothing but their own uncertainty. This is where control begins to slip away. Instead of mastering their emotions, they become consumed by them. Instead of dictating the terms of engagement, they find themselves engaged in an emotional battle they never prepared for. The pain of facing emotions is the price of true healing. Avoidants often fear emotional depth because they equate it with weakness, with vulnerability, with a loss of self-sufficiency. But pain is not the enemy, suppression is. What is buried does not disappear. It only strengthens beneath the surface. Growth requires discomfort. A seed must break open to grow into a tree. A caterpillar must endure the darkness of transformation before it becomes a butterfly. The same is true for emotional healing. There is no evolution without discomfort, no maturity without confrontation. Avoidants seek to bypass this process, believing that if they do not engage with their emotions, they will not be affected by them. But growth is not a choice, it is a necessity. Those who refuse to face their emotions remain trapped in the same patterns, repeating the same cycles and encountering the same struggles over and over again. No contact does not remove this reality, it highlights it. The silence becomes a test, a challenge to see if avoidance truly grants freedom or if it only prolongs suffering. The deepest pain often carries the greatest lesson, but only for those willing to confront it. Healing is not about numbing oneself to emotions. It is about learning how to navigate them. It is about understanding that avoidance is not protection. It is a delay of the inevitable. Growth demands that a person step into their discomfort, not retreat from it. Avoidants believe they choose solitude, but no contact forces them into loneliness. There is a fundamental difference between being alone by choice and being alone by circumstance. Solitude is intentional. It is a space where a person finds peace, clarity, and self-discovery. But loneliness is not chosen, it is felt. It is the weight of absence pressing down, making itself known in the quiet moments. When an avoidant withdraws, they tell themselves it is for their own good, that they are protecting their peace, that they are better off without emotional entanglements. But no contact removes the illusion of choice. It strips away the belief that they are in control of their isolation. It shows them that the silence they sought is not freedom, but a void that cannot be ignored. Loneliness is the silent teacher that avoidance tries to escape. It is not just the absence of others. It is the presence of unprocessed emotions, unresolved fears, and unspoken regrets. An avoidant may convince themselves they do not need connection, but when the silence stretches too long, something shifts. The same walls that were built for protection begin to feel like a prison. The absence of external conflict does not bring peace. It forces them to sit with their own inner turmoil. And this is where the discomfort begins. Not because they miss a specific person, but because they are left with themselves. People often think that avoiding emotional depth protects them from pain, but in reality, it only prolongs suffering. The human heart was not designed to function in isolation. Even the most independent person still craves connection on some level. Avoidants run not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much. They convince themselves that detachment is strength. But strength is not found in running, it is found in standing firm in the presence of emotion. No contact turns the absence of another into the presence of oneself, and that confrontation is often more painful than any external conflict could ever be. No contact doesn't just remove the other person, it reveals the self. When the distraction of a relationship is gone, what remains is the truth of who a person really is. Without someone else to react to, without an emotional buffer, without external validation or conflict, the avoidant is left with nothing but their own thoughts. And this is the moment of reckoning. The truth about avoidance is that it is not about escaping others, it is about escaping oneself. It is a strategy to avoid facing what lies beneath the surface, a defense mechanism to keep emotions at bay. But when no contact is enforced, the mask falls. The act of running is no longer an option. The absence forces a confrontation with reality, exposing fears, insecurities, and patterns that have long been ignored. What was once hidden in the noise of everyday life now stands fully exposed in the silence. The deeper the avoidance, the louder the confrontation becomes. You cannot escape what you refuse to confront. This truth lies at the heart of the avoidant experience. The very act of avoiding emotions, situations, or people is rooted in a belief that escape is possible. That by stepping away, one can avoid facing uncomfortable truths. But avoidance does not equate to resolution. What is unresolved simply waits for the right moment to demand attention. In the space created by no contact, emotions do not disappear, they only grow louder. Fears, insecurities, and unresolved conflicts are not neutralized by distance, they are merely deferred. When avoidance becomes the strategy, it is as if a person is trying to outrun their own shadow. No matter how far they go or how hard they try, the shadow is always with them. Similarly, no matter how much distance an avoidant places between themselves and their emotions, those emotions are always just beneath the surface, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. Running away from the pain of confronting one's feelings is a temporary solution that leaves a person more vulnerable, not less. The deeper the avoidance, the stronger the pull of what is being ignored. This is why no contact hurts avoidance more than they realize. It is not the external silence that creates the pain, but the internal reckoning that follows. Avoidants often believe they can escape their past, their fears, or the intensity of their emotions by walking away. But true escape does not come from physical or emotional distance. It comes from emotional clarity and healing. You cannot outrun what you have not faced. What you run from only accumulates. No contact doesn't close the door to those feelings. It locks them in a room and throws away the key. But eventually the door must be opened. Avoidants are often under the illusion that by not addressing what lies within, they are safe from it. In truth, they are simply postponing the inevitable. Healing begins not when the avoidance ends, but when it is confronted, understood, and dealt with. Real power is not found in evasion. It is found in the ability to stand in the face of fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability. The act of avoiding is often seen as a way to protect oneself from harm, but true protection comes from embracing the discomfort of facing difficult emotions. Strength is not in evading what's hard to deal with, it's in engaging with it. Strength is in recognizing that growth and transformation often come through struggle. It is in the willingness to not only confront one's emotions, but also to sit with them, understand them, and learn from them. Avoidants often mistake emotional numbness for strength. But numbness is not freedom, it is a self-imposed prison. When avoidance is the preferred method of dealing with life, it creates a false sense of control. Avoidants believe they are strong because they don't engage with emotions, but in reality, they are weakened by the refusal to experience them fully. Real strength lies in the ability to confront pain, acknowledge it, and then choose how to move forward. It is not the absence of pain that defines strength, but the ability to remain grounded in the midst of it. Avoidants often feel that by walking away, they are gaining control over their emotions, but in truth, they are losing control by not allowing themselves to process them. The real test of strength is not how well a person can avoid pain, but how well they can face it head on and emerge